did you do the last time you visited a website that was difficult or maybe frustrating to use? If you're like many users, you didn't stick around very long. According to usability guru Jacob Nielsen, leaving is the first line of defense when users encounter a difficulty at a website. In other words, when the site isn't very user-friendly, it's not very usable. So what is good website usability? According to web professional Kim Gunther, it's being able to perform with ease the tasks associated with using or navigating a website. Research suggests that web usability at its core, while multifaceted, consists primarily of two components: ease of use and usefulness, also called utility. In this presentation, we'll be taking a look at both of these components and how they affect web usability. First, ease of use. Ease of use is central to web usability in a couple of ways. First, according to Nielsen, it's a necessary condition of site survival. And the reason for that is that there are plenty of other websites out there, and people are likely not going to stick around very long trying to figure out how to use any one website. And a site that's not used very much is probably not going to be around very long. Second, engineering for ease of use affects many systems. A website may have multiple systems, does have multiple systems, including, for example, three closely related systems: navigation, labeling, labeling, and searching. And what can happen is if you have one a system that isn't very usable, any one of those, it can affect the others. So if your labeling is not very good, it's not logical, it's confusing, then navigating the website is going to be harder to do. It's going to take longer. And so that's ease of use. Now, usefulness is the next one, but before we go to that, I'd like to show you some examples of some design flaws as critiqued by Jacob Nielsen in his book, Homepage Usability. And in this, he had 50 major websites that he deconstructed and critiqued for their usability. And he had 19 on the Southwest Airlines. This is an old website of Southwest Airlines, and 3 of them are shown here. The first one that red arrow points to is a click and save link on the primary navigation bar. And the problem he had with it is that it's not very intuitive. It doesn't really tell you much. So what he suggests is that when it takes you to the page that you're clicking, it's Internet Weekly Specials, and that should be reflected in the label. The next one, the blue arrow, points to SWA Biz. Again, that may not be automatically associated with Southwest Airlines. So he recommends that you spell out the Southwest Airlines in a very visible place, like right here in the logo area, so that the user can associate it instantly with the abbreviation. He also suggests about this one is that it's kind of cutesy, and you should avoid using cutesy or overly clever labels that the user has to spend much time figuring out, because that slows down their navigation through the site. And the third item is the yellow arrow points to the search tool. Now this one is labeled all right, but it doesn't have the input box that users expect when they look for the search mechanism, usually near the top of the page. So if all of these flaws were addressed, then according to Nielsen, the site would be that much more usable. Okay, the next major component of web usability is usefulness, also called utility. Usefulness concerns why a particular site element exists rather than how it works. I have a couple definitions of it here. One is from Nielsen, and he says that it's a quality attribute that refers to a design's functionality. He says that to be useful, a site element must meet a user need. And he puts utility and ease of use on a par. They're of equal importance. The second definition by F.D. Davis, as cited by Sinhuja and Dastidar, is that it's defined as the ability of a system to improve user performance. Initially, usability referred only to ease of use. And because of flaws in that approach, eventually usefulness was added to the definition. So, as noted at the beginning of my presentation, research indicates that web usability consists primarily of 2 components: ease of use and usefulness or utility. Nielsen sums up the relationship of these 2 components this way: it matters little that something is easy to use if it's not what you want. On the other hand, it's also no good if the system can do what you want, but you can't make it happen because the interface is too hard to use. They both have to work together. Usability expert Steve Krug summed up the goal of usability neatly in the title of his book, Don't Make Me Think, meaning don't make it any harder for the user than necessary. And otherwise it's goodbye to your site and on to the next. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I do have a question.
Sure.
What are the guidelines a web designer should use to create a good website?
Well, actually, there are numerous usability guidelines available on the internet or in books. In fact, Nielsen's book, Homepage Usability, is an excellent source, and it covers usability do's and don'ts in major categories. And another one is Krug's book, Don't Make Me Think, subtitled A Common Sense Approach to Web Usability. And you can also Google for other guidelines and checklists.
Hey, thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
What is the role of graphics design in creating a user-friendly website?
Okay, that's been the subject of some controversy over the years. There's a couple schools of thought. Nielsen is, as I mentioned, the usability guru, and he's actually been criticized for being a little too simplistic in his approach to usability, focusing on a more utilitarian approach, meeting user needs, but not being concerned too much about the appearance or technical capabilities like Flash and things like that, especially early on when there were more difficulties with Flash. On the other hand, people like Linda Weinman, who's a graphics designer, says that the graphic design and how you present the information, the more attractive it is, the more logically it's presented, the more usable it's going to be. So there are different points of view on that. But the main thing is that it be logical and pleasing to look at, but usable at the same time.
Okay.
Thank you.